Hey, it's the Chief Bonding with Board Games. This is a review of Apocalypse Road from GMT. This is primarily a racing game, but it's in the apocalypse. Think Mad Max, Road Warrior. So everybody's got guns or rockets or cannons, and they're shooting at each other while also trying to win the race with a team. Your team against up to 10 other people's teams. You can do 2 to 10 players. Let's go in and take a look. There are 2 very large mounted maps, and the maps are double-sided, giving you 4 different maps. I may actually take some photos because you'll see there's areas down here that are on fire. There's craters that are on the map here that just show that it's apocalyptic. The boards are phenomenal. The artwork is great. You can use the Thunder Alley or Grand Prix maps. They have rules for that. They obviously don't have this cool apocalyptic thing, but it's possible if you want other kinds of boards. I have not played those racing games. This is my first experience. So, how does the game work? Well, you've got at first, it plays 2 to 10 players. I've got it set up for 2 with some of these cars down here, meaning I've got 5 cars on the table, but you'll have a team of cars, which you can see here. Again, I've picked out 5 and then they're randomly drawn for their pole position. I don't think it's called that. I'm calling it that. And then you also will have your extra cars that you haven't used. And when one of your guys gets destroyed, either due to ramming or gunfire, it goes up into the Destroyed Car Hall of Fame. And you will pull one of your spare cars, put it in what's called the chute, and then it can join in with your team. So you have all of these cars available to you. You have these little speed demons, all right? You can see he does 8 speed. You can see his armor, this one is really low though. But if you go down over here, I have this kind of like truck or minivan or tank or whatever the heck it is. I know it's not a tank, but it has a 3 armor, but you can see it's much slower. Then you have your guys in between. You also will have the type of weapon they have. So in this case, machine gun rear, I'll explain that in a second, machine gun turret. Here's an autocannon turret, all right? What that means is if we're looking at these guys here, this guy, if he has machine gun front, can shoot at these 3 spaces in front of him if there is another enemy vehicle there. He could shoot at them. Now I'll show you how to resolve these in a second. If he has a turret, he can shoot at those 3 in front of him, the 2 beside, or the 3 behind him. Now he wouldn't want to shoot his buddy here, but if he had machine gun rear only, a lot of little speedsters do, they like to be out front, they do not want you catching up, he could shoot at the 3 spaces behind him. Now you may say, how do we resolve the movement at first? Well, you would take the speed. So if we had, again, I know I'm showing green cars down there, but I showed you an 8. So let's say my purple speedster car with an 8, I want to use this card. I'm going to have a hand of 6 cards in front of me at the start of my turn. At every beginning of a turn, I'm always refilling, so I'll always have at least 6 cards to use. And then it's my choice what I want to do. Now, first we're going to show here, whatever the speed of my car is, whether it's that slower tank of a 4 or that speed demon race car of an 8, I'm going to add 3 to it. 3 is literally moving from space to space to space. So you can see I'm able to really zip along if I'm in that fast little number 8 vehicle. So here with line movement, if this green car activated, I should put the purple one in there, I'm sorry. He would actually pull this whole line of cars with him however he moved. It seems a little odd, but they're moving in conjunction as they're moving around the racetrack. You can have cards that are pulling the line with them, or they're pushing the line with them, or they have solo movement where they have the option to push if they want, or they can break off and just move on their own. So there's all kinds of cards that will allow this drafting movement to happen. Again, it's a team racing game in its heart. And the cards are what are allowing you to hopefully play your cards strategically to allow you to maybe be with your team and link up and do some maximization for your movement. Now, there are some other very cool cards Let me find a ram. So we have a ram movement here. So you would have your movement of +4 added to whatever kind of car you're driving. I will come back and explain this. This is like a random occurrence that's going to happen, usually bad for your car. We'll come back to that in a second. Now, if I came up and ended up ramming, so I did my movement. This wouldn't be a very good movement, but I just moved the one and then rammed this purple car, which I need to turn around and face the right direction. I will then resolve that ramming effect by drawing a combat card. I'll get to combat in a second. We're not there yet, but all we would do is go down and look at what I like to call these nice friendly VW bugs. I wish they were mean looking vehicles. The first number, in this case, 1 hit point, this would be terrible for the rammer, is what I did to the car I rammed. The second number is the damage I've done to myself by ramming. The odds are generally that you're going to do more damage to who you run into, but you're almost always, but not always, going to take damage yourself. And you can do massive 6 damage and just blow that card right off the road. He's out. So ramming comes into effect. But while I have this combat card on here, let's look at what we're doing. So if I was shooting the purple car, let's just say I was shooting this purple speedster, he's got an armor of 1. Now again, we already showed some have an armor of 2, some of 1. These slower ones will have an armor of 3. So if I were to use my weapon to shoot this purple car, and this number will be on the car as well, just so you don't have to refer to everybody's card, I would draw a card and I'd have to equal or exceed that number. In this case, I did if it's the speedster. If it was one of these, nope, didn't get through the armor. But let's assume I got through the armor. And let's say that I was firing a machine gun that faced toward the front. It would do 2 hit points of damage. I would then put 2 damage markers on this, or give it to this purple player for them to put in this area. If 6 damage markers come up here, whether it's because they got rammed, shot, that car is destroyed, it goes to the destroyed car area, Hall of Shame, and then boom, purple would have the option of taking one of their cars that isn't in their group that's out on the board, throwing it into the chute, wherever the chute is on that particular map, and that car can get back in the race with purple's team. And racing continues. Every time you destroy a car, if you actively destroy it with combat, you're going to get a victory point. Sometimes that can get bumped up by some random event cards. If you go around the track and cross the checkered board finish line, you're going to get a victory point for every car that does that. There is no tracking of laps or who's in the lead. It's simply cross that line, gain a victory point. One of the things I don't like, so you can see this car, after you move it, you flip this to its shaded other side to show that it has moved. And it's most natural to just flip it on this long face like this, but you can see now the car is going in the other direction. And you have to flip it on the short side on the track in order for it to not have to be rearranged around as you're moving it. I was like, that's bizarre, because by nature I want to just flip it on the short side because it's easier, but it's weird that it kept changing it, and I had to remind myself to flip it on the shorter end. It was to the point where I was like, boy, that just seems weird. Not that it's overly difficult or anything. But I went on BGG to check, and sure enough, people stated that in the other 2 games, you did simply flip it on this longer axis, which is easier to flip when it's on the board. And something just got changed on how the cars are set up. The sequence of play, throwing it up in the corner right now, is quite simple. And what it means is the turns really fly, and your cars are being drug along on other people's turns. So the game state or the board state is always changing. And that's really interesting. It keeps you engaged on other people's turns, even if you have a lot of people playing. We are back, and now you can see why Apocalypse Road is like a party-type race game with destruction. You can play with up to 10, which packs the tracks. I haven't played with 10. It's in the midst of a pandemic, but I'm envisioning 2021, in which case there will be 10 people over here. We're going to have all this craziness pandemic cleared up, I believe, hopefully by vaccination or whatever. Who knows? But I want 10 people over here, and I want them all sitting around my big table where I filmed this bad boy and racing and shooting each other. This is light. The simplicity of the rule set is perfect. The hardest thing to learn, as I kind of mentioned in there, is which cards, what is line movement? What kind of drafting is that? Simple. You move all those cars, even if you're in the middle, front, and behind. Got it. Lead movement, all the cars behind you follow along. You're the leader. Got it. How does a ram work? Stops your car, pull a combat card, look at the bottom, resolve it. It's that easy. Moves quick. Cars are getting destroyed all of the time. So it's got that light group fun feel. Perfect. Perfect. As soon as I get a crowd over here, it'll be on the table. I don't own any of the other racing games. So Thunder Alley looks fun, but a Grand Prix looks interesting. I generally don't play a lot of racing games. But you throw in some combat, Mad Max style, because here's what I picture. This group area here, there's a lot of folks, they must have a lot of gas. Maybe they're near some huge cities where they can go pick up cars. I can see a whole story here. And people are aggravated with each other, but there's enough resources that we can have different racing things go on here. This is a movie. This is a movie. And they come in and they race each other for food. Let's make it really harsh. Food is what they do. And then there's crews going into these dangerous cities and picking up engines and doing all kinds of stuff. Sorry. All right, that's where I go with this. But this is just a racing game with a lot of combat, shooting, and destruction. And the strategy is in the way you're going to draft and group move and hopefully get in with your teammates and slide around the track. You can get your fast guy up front, really pulling a whole line of your cars with him or her. Victory points are ticking off, as I showed, by passing the checkered line area or doing destruction to other vehicles. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So, as far as a racing game, I'm going to say it's extremely accessible because it's definitely a racing game first, but it's got all this, it definitely doesn't take itself too serious. So it's got that fun, I'm not going to say party type element, but it's got that, everybody uses it, but that beer and pretzels kind of moment. It's not a brain burner, but there's enough strategy in there that you want to figure out how to work your cars with your team. Meanwhile, everybody's pointing at the leader saying, take purple down a notch. Don't let them keep doing what they're doing. Interesting. So you may not want to be the breakout leader. You just want to be high enough in the pack you can snatch victory when you need to. Apocalypse Road, great game. I think it'll lead non-gamers into kind of that gamer realm. Couple bad things. Again, I mentioned it already. Right off the bat, I didn't like the way the cars flipped. I kept flipping them on the long axis or the short little hexagonal flip side. It's easier to flip, and then the cars were backwards. That bugged me. It's not hard to flip them the other way, but I kept doing it. And I was like, why'd they do it that way? That doesn't seem intuitive. There's a lot of counters here. You've got the stack of counters for the team, and you're adding these in as you cross the finish line, the checkered line, or you destroy another card, and then the countdown tracker's pulling them out. And for the more people playing, again, not hard, I've got them all in their own little baggies. So you can just be like, boom, put your counters down there, boom, boom, boom. But they tend to get knocked around a little bit. It's fine. It's fine. But slightly fiddly with handing those out. Card qualities on the weak side, but if you've played any GMT games, they're fully functional. You just don't have like linen finish or anything. I don't care, they're fine. They do everything they need to do. They are glossy, but they feel a little thin, but you're clicking through them all the time. I love the artwork kind of on the face of or on what would be the backs of the cards. The artwork seems a little bland on the inside, but I don't know. I mean, all I need to see is the autocannons, the number, but I kept thinking, boy, if you put a little sight on that number or something, I don't know. It seemed like it could have been jazzed up a little bit in development, but maybe not. Again, for ease of play, it works just fine. Maybe bigger. I'm getting old. Sometimes I'd be looking, and I'd be like, what does that do? Or what's that car over there? Can he shoot me if I come up behind him? In other words, does he have rear-facing guns, or does he have a turret? Generally, you know the faster guys are shooting to the rear, so you kind of get that figured out, or you just ask, or you just drive and fight. That's it. Chief, Bonnie with Board Games.